It finally happened. It happened. And we're going to tell you everything as we got a Jets fan and we got a Sam Darnold truther here on Sports Force episode 6. I'm Joe Scurto along with Brian Bolstered. Brian, I know you're feeling good. We're not going to get into depth. We're going to run the intro first, but let's just get a quick snip. How excited are you about Sam Darnold going to the Carolina Panthers right around the corner where you're living too?
Oh, I'm in paradise. You see the shirt, you see the hat, the sun behind me, man. Finally free. I could not be happier, especially to have him here in my home state. Like you said, I might even have to get a Sam Darnold Panthers jersey.
You might have to. Look what I got. This is going to be the last time I ever wear this thing. And it may not be on me once we get to the end of the show, but let's drop that intro quick.
3, 2, 1. Get it back again. Made the rejection. One small step. One giant leap for mankind.
So yeah, it happened. Sam Darnold is a Carolina Panther. The Panthers send a 2021 6th-round draft pick, a 2022 2nd-round draft pick, and a 2022 4th-round draft pick for the 4th-year quarterback out of USC. Brian, how you feeling? Who won this trade? What you thinking?
I feel great. I think the Jets did okay considering the circumstances. They kind of lost all leverage in this situation. They weren't going to get a really high price for, a 3rd overall pick. But if we're being real, he's going into his 4th season. This last year was kind of his worst in a lot of ways. And then being placed at the 2nd overall pick, everybody knows they're going to pick a quarterback. So they don't really have any leverage. But this was a slam dunk for the Carolina Panthers. They weren't in a position where they could draft one of these high-level quarterbacks in the draft. They're kind of in no man's land. I think they did make an effort to go after Deshaun Watson. We all know what happened there. And I think they did make a run at one of those top picks in the draft, but weren't willing to give that up. Here, it's such a low-risk, high-reward scenario. You're bringing in a 23-year-old quarterback. He's 23. He's younger than Baker Mayfield. He's younger than Joe Burrow. He's 23.
He'll be 24.
He's playing good football.
He'll be 24 in June.
He's 23 right now. They got a 23-year-old quarterback, and he's got more talent than a lot of these guys in this class. And I know everybody loves to hype it up. It's the new class, right? But let's be realistic. A lot of these guys, 50% of first-round quarterbacks straight up bust out. Hopefully that's not the case with Sam Darnold, but I think we're going a little too far just throwing him under the rug. I know Jets fans probably have to rationalize it to some degree and just be like, oh, he was trash, and completely forget 2019. Completely forget that their big free agent acquisition this summer or the last summer was Brashad Perriman. I had you on my podcast like a year ago and talked about Brashad Perriman and lost my mind. Like, I don't think people realize he didn't have a chance to succeed in New York. With the Carolina Panthers, things aren't perfect, but there will be no more excuses. And so I'm excited to see it. I think Jets fans are excited, maybe waiting on pins and needles, hoping it doesn't go well, but not wanting to root against the guy. I could be honest with you. You may not be that petty. I'm fairly petty. I hope Zac Wilson is trash. I hope he is garbage, and I hope the Jets suck for another 4 years, and then maybe they can turn it around after that.
I may be petty after that. Honestly, hopefully Sam Darnold sucks at this point. I was going to say, I think the Jets fans, there were really there's a lot of Jets fans that are mad about this trade, that they don't know why they didn't trade back. They don't know why they didn't give Sam Darnold another chance. I'm always a believer that it was 2 years late. You got a new regime. You got Joe Douglas. You got Robert Saleh. Do we blame Joe Douglas trading a guy under his last year of his rookie contract who really hasn't performed, but in a disaster that really Joe Douglas didn't cause in the first place? Joe Douglas was thrown into fire. He was thrown into fire after Mike McCagnon hired Adam Gase, went through the draft
crimes.
Process. Yeah,
that's what McCagnon did. Committed crimes.
America's Most Wanted. McCagnon's face should be up there. Drafting terribly, throwing insanely amounts of money at Crowder, Mosley, and Bell, and none of those guys, maybe besides Crowder, has panned out. We all know Bell. Mosley's played 3 quarters in 2 years, and then Crowder, whatever. And then Joe Douglas comes. He gets his coach. Now you got your quarterback. So I don't hate it. I mean, if they were to trade, they should have done it 2 years ago. And they failed Sam Darnold. And I think Joe Douglas realized that the old regime, they really messed up. And he's going to try to make sure everything in his ability. They got 21 draft picks in the next 2 years. That doesn't happen to Zac Wilson. It's going to be Zac Wilson. I think it's a great trade for both sides. I'm actually shocked that the Jets got 3 picks. I would have been happy with just a second at that point because Joe Douglas knew the risk he was taking, but we all knew that he probably knew something that we didn't know. The Panthers were all in on him, and even the Broncos trying to join the sweepstakes a little later. It's going to be interesting to see what Darnold does. And ironically enough, both of these teams play each other this year. So Zac Wilson, Sam Darnold, that's going to be a lot of fun. And I wouldn't be surprised if Darnold balls out, but I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't. And same thing with Zac Wilson. You really don't know.
No doubt. It's going to be fireworks for sure. Either way, because they got explosive talent in Carolina. They've got the 8th overall pick. They might go and get Kyle Pitts. I would love that. But, this is Joe Judge's stamp on the New York Jets. He's made a lot of good moves so far. This is his first big-time move. And then, as you mentioned, he's got a lot of picks. So if Joe Douglas is that dude, the Jets are going to be good. They've got all the draft capital in the world. Supposedly, the coaching staff was more wanting to keep Sam Darnold. Supposedly, Robert Saleh and LaFleur wanted to keep Sam Darnold and ride with that for a year. That's interesting. I think the coaches, maybe they saw something in Sam Darnold, or maybe they just weren't sold on Zac Wilson. Either way, it looks like they're stuck with him. Do you think there's any chance that they go with Justin Fields, who a lot of people are still saying has the higher upside compared to Zac Wilson?
I would be surprised at this point. I think I'd be really surprised if it's not Zac Wilson. But at the same time, I got to stay on my toes because it is the Jets. I don't know what they're going to be picking, honestly. To be honest with you, a few months ago, I had a dream that they drafted Tua's younger brother with the 2nd overall pick. And I wasn't even surprised because that could happen. I know it's a dream, but I'm on my toes. But I think you got to go Zac Wilson. And Douglas already said it to the media. If they had the 12th or the 15th pick, they got Darnold. But you know that even if you have a little feeling that Zac Wilson is a franchise quarterback, you got to take him. And due to the circumstances, Darnold's in his last year. It's not like Darnold's in his 2nd year, and it's not like Douglas drafted Darnold. We got to understand, Joe Douglas wants to build the team he wants. And I'm sure at the end of the day, Saleh and LaFleur agreed because Joe Douglas was really adamant of having all these coaches involved. Like this was him and Robert Saleh's choice. It wasn't just him. And that's when, maybe you have a decent GM. But again, I think for both sides, it works. The Panthers get their quarterback. It would have been a rare opportunity for them to even get one, especially now. We might be seeing 4 quarterbacks in the top 4, and now we're hearing the Falcons might drop out, and that makes room for another team. So the Panthers were like, listen, we're going to take Darnold. We got his 5th-year option. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm with you, Joe. I think it's a good move for both. But before we close this out, I've just got to get your take on the Carolina Panthers for the 2021 season. Sam Darnold, the future GOAT, behind center. Do they make the playoffs?
No way. 7-10.
7-10. I'm thinking at least. Oh, there's 17 games. At first, I was like, I know that's wrong. No, but I was going to be wrong. I was going to say 8-8.
I heard someone say 6-11. I was like, wait. I was like, oh yeah, they added another game. So I'd say 7 wins, just because. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they were flirting around with second place. Like the Buccaneers are going to roll through that division. They're going to beat all 3 of those teams twice. They're going to go undefeated in that division. It's not even going to be fair. After that, 7 to 8 wins. I don't see playoffs though. I'm sorry.
Oh, come on, man. I think they might sneak in 9-8. I agree with you. The Bucs take that division, but I think the Saints might drift off and the Carolina Panthers to the promised land. Sammy D, I gotta hope for it. Nobody's going to tell me wrong until it actually happens.
Yeah. I mean, if they can get that defense, I mean, I know they made numerous moves, get that defense right, get that offensive line right. He obviously has the weapons, and they could go get another weapon at 8. I'm really intrigued to what they're going to do now. I've heard that they might be taking Justin Fields still, and I don't even see that being an option. Who was it? I think it was Mel Kiper, not really great sources, but Mel Kiper, Mike Tannenbaum, who was one of the terrible Jets GM, saying like they don't think they're out of the quarterback market. I think they are. They're going to get a weapon for Sam Darnold. They're not placing the 5th-year option to just throw all these quarterbacks. You know, this isn't college.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy if they did that. But I've heard everything from, Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, if he somehow fell, to Rashawn Slater, which I hope they go offensive line because they already got the string bean. Robbie Anderson, we know Sam Darnold's got that connection, DJ Moore. So it's going to be interesting. I think at least between us, there will be a little bit of rivalry with Sports Force going into next season, Panthers versus Jets. I can't wait for it.
That's going to be a thing to watch. It's going to be very entertaining. And ironically, they play each other this year. So we'll have to wait and see. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the other quarterback who's still there, right, with Sam Darnold and Teddy Bridgewater. And these two met when Sam Darnold was a rookie in 2018, and Sam Darnold got drafted, and then Bridgewater got traded after getting signed a few months before that. So the same thing literally might happen again. Bridgewater's in Carolina, now Darnold's there, and now he's going to be out. What do you think they're going to do with Bridgewater? Are they going to keep him? Are they going to trade him? I mean, I can't see any other way of keeping him. I don't know how that helps anyone. I think they should ship him out, but what you thinking here?
Hopefully this isn't like a curse of the Teddy Two Gloves that's just following Sam Darnold around. All I can tell you is I will be upset if Teddy Bridgewater is the starting quarterback week 1. I won't know what to do. I'll probably just have to throw everything away, toss my TVs out the window, and just can't watch football anymore. So I hope he's either, in a solid mentor position or they just release him. I don't know that they're really going to be able to trade him until really about week 1. If somebody's quarterback were to go down, okay, we can bring in Teddy Bridgewater. He's serviceable. But if Teddy Two Gloves starts, I'm going to be upset. The Panthers fans are going to be upset because we've already seen that show, and it just plain isn't good enough.
Yeah, I wouldn't get it at all. If they kept him, but starting him and even keeping him sounds crazy. This is the guy who just signed an $80 million contract, and the Panthers don't like him. If they were willing to trade 3 draft picks, if they were all in the rumors of maybe potentially drafting up to draft the quarterback, they don't like him as the long-term answer. So I can see them trading him. I've even heard that they could even cut him if they really want. And I don't think that would be a bad idea. I don't know what the financial statement would be in terms of how much money they would lose, if they would lose anything, if Bridgewater would lose anything, but I'm not really sure. But I just don't really see a place for Bridgewater on this roster now. They got Sam Darnold for a reason. They traded 3 picks for a reason. They're going to exercise his 5th-year option for a reason. He's going to be the starting quarterback for at least the next 2 years, guaranteed, this year and next year. And then you see if he plays up to the hype to earn himself a long-term deal in Carolina. But it would be absolutely madness if Bridgewater started, because why are you going to trade 3 picks? And you may say, yeah, they're picks, but still, it's still an investment that a lot of teams probably weren't willing to do at the end of the day after the Zac Wilson combine or pro day, whatever the hell you want to call it these days. So it would be crazy. I think they should try to trade him. And if not, cut him if it's not going to kill you financially.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it seems crazy to trade that much and then have that guy be your backup in Sam Darnold. It also seems kind of crazy to be paying your backup quarterback in Teddy Two Gloves, Teddy Bridgewater, $20 million for a backup season, right? So I think you're right. He's probably on the move some sort of way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's definitely on the way. Him and his 2 gloves, they're going somewhere else. It might be New England. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. Classic.
I would love
New
to see
England.
that.
I'm rooting for that so much if New England gets him, because then it's like, then what? You got him and Cam Newton.
Cam Newton and Teddy Two Gloves. You have the guy who can't throw it 10 yards because he just spikes it in the dirt. And then you have the guy who can't throw it 10 yards, even with his 2 gloves, because he just has a straight up noodle.
I am rooting for that. Definitely. All right. So this brings us to our mailbag section here, and we got the Robson Sportcast here with a short Zac Wilson question. This was before the Sam Darnold question. By the way, this is the biggest Sam Darnold hater I know, and I'm sure if you know Alex Robson, that he's a big Darnold hater, and he wants to know how would you grade the move if the Jets kept Sam Darnold and drafted Zac Wilson? I would grade it an F. It's simple. It would be terrible for both parties. It wouldn't be fair to Sam Darnold. It wouldn't be fair to Zac Wilson. Why would Zac Wilson want to go into that situation? Why would Sam Darnold want to start? Because as soon as you throw an interception, you're calling for his head. But then if Darnold performs well, everyone's like, why in the world did you draft Zac Wilson? So it's an easy question. It's an F.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's an F because the only way it possibly makes even a shred of sense is if every single team in the NFL was like, we won't even give you 1 4th-round pick for Sam Darnold. That's the only way it makes sense, because if you do keep him on the roster, then you get that compensatory pick. That would be a 3rd or 4th round, depending on how things shake out. But that's the only reason, and you're exactly right. As far as the dynamic in the quarterback room, if Sam Darnold plays bad, you got the fans are going to be going crazy. It's just a bad situation. So I agree, F.
Yeah, especially in New York. So, all right, we got another question here. Tony Tucker, Project Dribble. Did Juzang's March Madness run put him in the convo to be at the top with Jalen Suggs and Cade Cunningham and other top prospects, basically? You think he's going to go top 5, top 3? Do you think he solidified himself into a spot with an impressive tournament this year with UCLA?
I think he definitely solidified himself as a 1st-round pick. I think he might be back end of the lottery kind of guy. His March Madness tournament run was insane. The man averaged like 22 points per game, took an 11 seed UCLA team that was playing in the play-in game all the way to the Final Four, to the very last seconds. But, I just don't quite see it. He's a straight up bucket, but he's getting no separation, even in college. Now he's got the height. He's like 6'8", but he's just shooting right in people's face because he can't get any separation. I like the kid a lot. He's a Kentucky transfer, talented, but top 5 is that's a little too much for me.
Yeah, I don't think it's top 5 either. We've seen a lot of players draft stock rise up because of the performance, and I think it should. It definitely showed you that this kid is pretty damn good, especially given the circumstances that he was. I mean, they were one crazy show. You get rid of that one crazy shot by Suggs, and they're potentially playing for the national championship game. So he had a lot to do with that. But yeah, top 5, no. I think it's Cunningham, Suggs. Not going to lie, I haven't done a whole lot of research of the other guys, but I just know those are the 2 clear-cut guys. What I've seen, I don't think he's on his level, but I definitely think he's going to be a top 15, maybe top 20 pick. I wouldn't be surprised if someone reaches for him in like the teens because of his run, but I don't think it's going to earn him a top 5, top 3 spot by any means.
All right, and then we got one more question coming from my dad. You see the hat. His dad's a UCLA basketball fan, so that's kind of where that crossing of the Cardinal and the baby blue comes in, which I'm not quite a fan of. But it was an exciting game, and his question is, how would you rank the UCLA versus Gonzaga game among all-time tournament games? I don't want to get too recency biased here, so I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, that is tough. That is really tough. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I think the North Carolina Villanova game, the national championship a few years ago, was it 16?
Yeah, 16.
I mean, I think that was a pretty insane game. I know I might be biased here too. Michigan had some crazy games against Kansas. Trey Burke hit like this insane shot to win it. Pretty similar to the UCLA Gonzaga game. I could say in the last few years, definitely. There's been so many great games, so I can't really rank it. But for the last, I'd say like 2 or 3 tournaments, I mean, by far the best. Definitely the best. But history, I don't know. Mr. Bolster, that's kind of a tough question because there's so many really good games. So yeah, it definitely was an insane game. Best game in the tournament, but I don't know where I'd quite rank it. But it's definitely got to be close there because UCLA shouldn't have been in the game at first. Gonzaga was undefeated. UCLA tied it up. And then with 3 seconds left, the ending was insane. The ending speaks for itself. And that's what made me think that this was Gonzaga's year. But we'll get into that because it clearly wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, one of the all-time games because the quality of play the entire game was really good. It was really high-level college basketball. You know, a lot of times these tournament games are just rock fights, and this one wasn't. This was a high level of play, bucket getting as well as passing. So I was really impressed with it. And then the ending, like you mentioned, back and forth, tying it up, and then a 3 to win as time expires was great. But off of my memory, I didn't get to watch it live, but the Duke Kentucky game in the early 90s, that was epic, especially because of the rivalry, the hatred between those teams. Then the national championship that you mentioned, that has a special place in my heart as well. Just seeing that dagger to the UNC Tar Heel fans' hearts, that was pretty awesome. So those ones I've got to put above it a little bit. The Kansas-Memphis one as well, with, I believe, Mario Chalmers hitting a 3 to win it against that Derrick Rose team, which that one was a little bit different. It was like an epic ending, but almost dry. If you watch the game, they started fouling Memphis with like 5 minutes left. Just fouling them every time because they were like the worst free throw shooting team ever to be like a 1 seed. They couldn't make free throws at all. The situation, you know, the plan ended up working out, but that got a little bit dry to watch. So I think this one's up there. It's hard to place it as number one, especially because it just happened. But it was an all-time game with a great level of play.
Oh, yeah, it was an unbelievable game. And like I said, the circumstances made it even cooler. The fact that the UCLA was such a huge underdog. I think there were 17-point underdogs, something crazy like that. They were given no shot. And this was a team that just had a crazy, crazy ride, and it ended that way. It definitely was one of the best games I've seen in a while. I just can't say it's the best because it just happened. But maybe from 10 years from now, we could be saying that that is possibly a top 3 best March Madness game of all time. All right, so we're about to wrap it up here. Episode 6 of Sports Force, and we're going to stick with March Madness here. The NCAA tournament, it was all Baylor. Baylor just destroyed them. It wasn't even a game. How disappointed were you, Brian? Like going into, I was really excited. I mean, I thought this was going to be like, this is the best 2 teams. Some people were complaining about it. Why? We never see it. I don't remember the last time. And then Gonzaga had a chance to be the first undefeated team since the Indiana Hoosiers, led by Bob Knight. I mean, there was a lot in stake. Baylor's never that. I mean, Baylor's been a great program since that coach has gotten there. You can tell that he's turned around that program, but they haven't been national championship good. But how disappointing was this? Or were you not disappointed at all and you liked the outcome?
No, I was disappointed. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of historical things going into this game. The undefeated streak, 2 programs that, although they were very good this year and they've been really good for the past several seasons, they've gone without national championships. I mean, I believe Gonzaga doesn't even have one. And I think Baylor hasn't had one since like 1947 or something crazy. So there's a lot riding on this. And, you know, we talked about tournament games a lot of times being ugly. I thought this game had so much potential because Baylor plays so fast. They're so locked in defensively, but they score as well. And then I thought Gonzaga was just too good to get blown out, which obviously I was wrong, but they play really fast too. So it was a really intriguing first half. I was hoping that Gonzaga, you know, fought back into it. They cut it to 10 at halftime, and then Baylor came out the second half and just smacked them again. It was truly impressive by Baylor, but without a doubt, I was disappointed. I wanted to stay up until midnight and have another buzzer beater. Unfortunately, we got sent to bed early.
Yeah, literally though. I mean, right in the start when it was 9-0, it didn't even like I couldn't even believe it was Gonzaga that they were playing. Like it seemed like this was a first round game. Baylor was just so energized, and I really do, and I said it before the game, that wear and tear from that UCLA game, if that came into effect, then Gonzaga is going to have a long night. And that's exactly what they did. I had Gonzaga. I thought Gonzaga was going to win, and mainly because of that shot, and was like, this has to be their year. But obviously I'm wrong. But man, every time Gonzaga would drive to the hoop, it would get blocked or they would lose the ball. They were really just, it was so bad.
They were athletically outmatched, Joe.
Yeah,
they were just athletically outmatched. It looked like Baylor was playing in hyperspeed compared to them.
Seriously, that that Zamba guy, or am I saying it right? Zero. Oh my gosh, that guy just absolutely destroyed everyone. You couldn't get by him. He would get every rebound. That's the thing. They piled on the offensive rebounds early. Gonzaga continued to make mistakes, poor ball control, and every time they would get down to the hoop, they'd either get blocked or the ball would somehow go between their legs. And then that's not even before that. Baylor was on fire. I mean, these guys were hitting threes after threes after threes. It just wasn't even a game, like you said, when they got it down to 10, but that's the closest they got to it. And the closest they were into the game was the opening minutes when they were down 9-1 and then 16-4. And that game was over a minute in. And I really thought that Gonzaga could have had a shot because they were such a good team and they're a hot team and they're a solid 3-point shooting team. But man, Baylor, it's well earned. I mean, they were by far the better team. Wasn't even close.
No doubt. First round matchup is really, I think, nail on the head. Like Baylor comes out there like 6 for 6 for 3 right away. Yeah. It's 9-0. 9-0. Like Gonzaga can't score. It was insane. They at least made it respectable. But Baylor, man, hats off to them. They were the more physically dominant team. They were more mentally locked in, and they earned every second of it. So hats off to them. A great season among a lot of adversity.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I thought it ended up being a really entertaining tournament besides the Baylor Houston game. I mean, that game was kind of in this game too. I guess it really just showed that Baylor was getting better and better and they were the best team. As much as we loved that Gonzaga UCLA game, Baylor, they were like shockingly good to me. They did everything right. And their defense was outstanding the entire game. They didn't slow down. That was the thing. Because if they slowed down, I thought Gonzaga would have been sneaking by, maybe make it an 8, maybe a 6-point game. Not at all. I mean, they were outmatched. Gonzaga was outcoached. I think he was outcoached by a long shot. They had a perfect game plan going in. Energy, play really good defense, and get your 3-point shots, and they killed it.
That's exactly right. We've talked about it before. Aggressive wins. And they kept their foot on the gas pedal. They never let up for a second. It paid off because even when Gonzaga went on their runs, they were able to limit it. And then 3-3, and it's back up to 16 before you know it. So I think, again, the lesson is aggressive wins. Hats off to the Carolina Panthers for being aggressive.
Yeah, maybe a little too aggressive. We'll see about that. Well, that's going to just about wrap it up here. Sports episode 6 here on the Warzone Sports Network. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on TikTok. Follow us on Instagram. Subscribe to YouTube if you haven't already. We are everywhere, and you'll see us every Wednesday. I'm Joe Scurto alongside my man, Brian Bolstered, who's very excited about his Sam Darnold, but we'll be talking plenty about that as the next coming weeks and until the NFL season. So can't wait. And we'll see you next week.